Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner on 12 Ounce Sports. I am your host, Glenn Kaplan. Must have chosen the wrong music today, but that's okay. Hope you all are having a wonderful week. Welcome to my 170th show today. We are locked and loaded with topics for around the next hour or so. Sorry, my apologies with pressing those with the wrong buttons. I was looking for the music one. I accidentally pressed this one. So, ladies and gentlemen, for around a little bit under an hour or so, we will be talking NHL Stanley Cup playoffs today. And we will preview the NBA playoffs. Nothing really spectacular in the MLB or the NFL. I hope you all missed me on Monday. I was not live. Now I'm back. Better, hopefully stronger than ever. Let's get those viewers, followers, listeners, and ratings up from not only my show, but for the other shows on this network here. Let's get rolling. All right. Who loves overtime in the National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs? You simply do not like it if it's one of your favorite teams. Because you're like, any minute now, this game can end. Can end in 30 seconds. Or it can take 2 hours. That's what it's like. I guess when people are waiting to deliver babies, it's like they could come out any minute, but then you have to wait so long for it to finally be over with. That's what you feel like when watching these Stanley Cup playoffs. And Boston Bruins and Washington Capitals was a double overtime thriller. And the first 3 games of this series has gone to overtime in all 3. The last time the Washington Capitals have had their first 3 Stanley playoff games go to overtime, they won it all in 2018, and they were also trailing 2-1 in the series. So maybe they had the Boston Bruins right where they want them. But the problem is that Washington isn't fully healthy, and the Boston Bruins are. That's the simplicity of the problem here when you're the Washington Capitals, unlike the Boston Bruins. And let me tell you something. That game, this series, has been all obviously decided by one goal. And it's highly unlikely we are going to see any blowouts at all in this series. Because Boston won game number 3, 3-2 in double overtime, on a goal scored by Craig Smith at the 5:48 mark unassisted. And now there's speculation or argument as to what exactly happened and led to that goal. What is my opinion on it? Is that is 100% the defenseman's fault. The goaltender, Ilya Samsonov, absolutely played that puck correctly. The fact that Justin Schultz completely misplayed the puck and Craig Smith was able to steal it and tuck it home at the 5:48 mark into the second overtime session, and it was unassisted, was a complete and utter defensive lapse. And Pittsburgh Penguins fans this morning, and we knew he was with them before he went to the Washington Capitals, you're like, yeah, that's the old Justin Schultz we know and love. Oh, no, he did. We have him win 2 Stanley Cups back in 2016, 2017. But this is a new day and a new team. So, and throughout all the records that have happened in the past, the fact that the Bruins seem like they want it more than the Capitals is a telling sign in this series. And one of the reasons why I decided to take the Boston Bruins in 6 games. I think it's going to potentially stand hold to be true, but it's going to remain to be seen. And if the Capitals do not win Game 4, they are not winning 3 games in a row against the Boston Bruins. That is simply not happening. The Washington Capitals are in a must-win Game 4 situation. If they do not win Game 4, they will not win this series. It is extremely difficult to win trailing a series 3-1. And the Washington Capitals have never done that in the Alex Ovechkin era, have trailed 3-1 and come back to win this series. You cannot go down 3-1. If they do go down 3-1, you might as well get their golf coursing bags ready. They can go, I was going to join President Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, down at the White House when he golfs. But I know he doesn't golf. Maybe they could just go see the old 45th President Donald Trump golf. But that's not on the minds of the Washington Capitals. They want to keep marching along in these Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's the way they want to see it. They got to make adjustments for Game 4. They need more determination and will and not take the sheer stupidity of all these ridiculous penalties, especially with the one that tied the game at 2 for Boston. That was the one where Brad Marchand tied the game at the 11:32 mark on the power play, assisted by Patrice Bergeron and Charlie McAvoy. You know Boston was going to strike sooner or later on the power play. Come on. Yet I know they had their fair share of opportunities. And the fact they weren't able to convert, you know what happens in these Stanley Cup playoffs. You give this team one extra life, they will kill you for it. And that's what the Boston Bruins did last night to the Washington Capitals. What were some of the other goals scored happened in this hockey game? Yes, no goals in the first period, but let's go to the second period. Alex Ovechkin, a 21-mark power play goal, assisted by Anthony Manthony, our Arizona Washington Capitals. Alex Ovechkin, he just slammed his stick in frustration when they lost. That was absolutely relatively funny. Well, he did score. He has 70 career playoff goals, but has yet to have one in overtime. And I agree with the World Hockey Report. It's completely astonishing how he does not have a playoff overtime goal in his illustrious career. Boston, Taylor Hall, a ridiculous move at the 9:17 mark, assisted by Craig Smith and Kevin Millar. Washington Capitals nicked down 18:50 mark, assisted by Garnett Hathaway. Now, I don't know if you saw it last night, where Garnett Hathaway was in the crease of Tuukka Rask. So here's Garnett Hathaway, and here's Tuukka. I wish I could show you, but excuse me, there's like this little pad thing. So the pad thing, so here I have Tuukka Rask, here's Tuukka Rask, and here's Garnett Hathaway. And Garnett Hathaway gets in his kitchen. So Tuukka Rask is like, pow, 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 right punching him all along. Now that was actually some funny stuff to see there. Ilya Samsonov was actually brilliant with 40 saves. Washington Capitals. Felix Copley was his backup. Vitek Venchuk, Craig Anderson out due to injury for the Washington Capitals. And Tuukka Rask finished with 35 saves for the Boston Bruins. He was actually pretty good after I said they were down 1-0 in the series. Said, yeah, they don't win game 2. Jeremy Swayman starts game 3. But not Jeremy Swayman. Tuukka Rask has been just fine. And Yaroslav Block and Dan Vladar, the healthy scratches and active players for the Boston Bruins for goalie. And the goaltender position for them is just fine. Now let me get into my next segment here. Yes, we do. New York Islanders, Pittsburgh Penguins. The story of this series so far is not the offense and it's not the defense. It's the goalies on both teams have some sort of either rubber bands or Velcro sticking to their padding. Because both of these teams, you cannot complain about either team not getting enough shots. If you do complain about not getting enough shots off in this series for either of these teams, then you simply do not know hockey. Game 1, Ilya Sorokin stood on his head, who started for Semyon Varlamov. And in Game 2, Tristan Jarry stood on his head and outplayed Semyon Varlamov. So that's what the storytelling is. That was the story in Game number 2. The Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders, it seems like the ice is wide open in this series. It's not as tight as we all made it, anticipated with Barry Trotz's system, and the whole defensive structure, I get it. But the defensive blue line for the New York Islanders is not as strong as people make it out to be. Goaltending? Absolutely. Defensive structure, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. The goaltending is going to decide this series as it has been in games 1 and 2. It's not going to be about the offensive play. It's not going to be about the defensive breakdowns. It's about the last line of defense. That's what this series is about. Semyon Varlamov or Ilya Sorokin, whoever starts for the New York Islanders, and it's going to be Semyon Varlamov tonight because he was the first goalie off for the New York Islanders this morning at morning skate. Or is it Tristan Jarry? That's where this series is going to be decided by. What all these goals have been scored in this series? Ridiculous shots. And yeah, I know in Game 1 that Tristan Jarry wasn't able. It was a low percentage for the Islanders to score, and probably should have stopped some of them. But the fact that those shots are so tough to score on is maybe saying goalie's got no chance. You gotta scream, you gotta get dirty. That's how it's gonna play, and that's how the Pittsburgh Penguins won Game 2, 2-1 on Tuesday night. It's all about attention to detail and the last line of defense. You know what this series is like? Who has the better quarterback play in the NFL? It's not about the receivers. It's not about the running backs. It's not about the offensive line or the defense. It's about which quarterback is going to carry the team on his back and make the most ridiculous plays. That's what it seems like with this New York Islanders Pittsburgh Penguins series. Which goalie is going to stand on his head more and make the more ridiculous saves, because we sit in the series through the first 2 games, these ridiculous toe saves, and I'm sure there's more in store. That's why seeing goalies go at it is absolutely ridiculous and fun. It's called highway robbery for a reason. And that's the way these goalies need to be in technique, fundamental sound, be in the position at the right time, and not second guess anything. That is the last thing either goalie needs. You cannot second guess what the goalies are going to do in this series. If they do second guess, they're in big time trouble. And you know I'm right on that. So in this game too, where it was 2-1 Pittsburgh, and it was a huge win for Pittsburgh because they avoided going down 0-2 in the series, and you could not be going down 0-2 back to the island. So game 1, they had 25% fans at PPG Paints Arena, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then in game number 2, they had 50% capacity. So the goals in the first period, 3:22 into the game at the 17:48 remaining in the first period mark, scored by Brian Rust, assisted by, it was actually unassisted. Second goal of the game for Pittsburgh Penguins in the first period, the greatest maybe trade deadline acquisition for them, Jeff Carter at the 13:07 mark, assisted by Jared McCann and Kasperi Kapanen. And that Carter chemistry with McCann and Jeff Carter and Jared McCann have had a spark with each other ever since the trade deadline. And Kapanen, speaking of trades, when former general manager Jim Rutherford traded for Kasperi Kapanen in the offseason, Kasperi Kapanen has been one of the marquee guys in this offense. And if Evgeny Malkin is yet to play, he is traveling with the Pittsburgh Penguins out onto Long Island for games 3 and 4. But we will see if he does crack the lineup or not. And backup goaltender Casey DeSmith will not travel. And Maxime Lagacé will continue to be the backup for now. Let's hope Pittsburgh never has to use him. And then second period goals by the New York Islanders. A tremendous backhanded shot by Josh Bailey at the 14:44 mark. And his goal was assisted by Brock Nelson. Third period goals, there were none. Samuel Varlamov finished the game with 43 saves for the New York Islanders. He was back in game 2 after Ilya Sorokin started game 1 for New York, and he stole for them. I was surprised that head coach Barry Trotz went to Samuel Varlamov for game 2 and not back to Ilya Sorokin. But hey, Varlamov actually was not that bad and not the reason why they lost. And Tristan Jarry bounced back big time for the Pittsburgh Penguins in game 2 with 37 saves. I just mentioned about Lagacé and Malkin and DeSmith. So now let's get to the next absolutely crowd-rific series between the Nashville Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes. The Nashville Predators' offense is completely abysmal and anemic. The Nashville Predators, this might be the worst offense in these Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's not simply even close. The fact that the Nashville Predators got shut out of game 2, 3-0 by Alex Nedeljkovic is not simply a surprise. And it's also not a surprise that UC Saros had to stand on his head. 12,000 fans erupted at PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina. The I-40 rivalry, yee-haw, 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 right down in the South now heading to Nashville, Tennessee for games 3 and 4. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Smashville, Tennessee. Now we get to experience the Smashville experience, because now let me get it out for you. Let me demonstrate it for you once again. Here it is. Here's the Carolina Hurricanes card. They're going to be smashing in Nashville, Tennessee. The color of the Carolina Hurricanes. Here's my hammer and here's my pencil. The color of the Nashville Predators, gold. So now let's demonstrate what's about to happen in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, with going to be more people than 12,000 It's going to be full capacity most likely in Nashville. So now let's start with the reckonage. 1, 2, and smash 3. They just completely smashed the Carolina Hurricanes card. And they have to win games 3 and games 4. Or this series is going to be over very quickly for the Nashville Predators. And they can get those nice, warm South golf courses ready for them. Because there's nothing else more that I love to do than play nothing but a bunch of charades on this show for y'all. Just trying to give y'all a good laugh down here. So now let me just tell you something else. The Carolina Hurricanes, there is a reason why Vegas has them as one of the favorites to win it all. Look no better than their great goaltending, defense, and power play structure, led by head coach Rod Brind'Amour. There's a reason why this Carolina Hurricanes rebuild that they were dealing with years ago has now finally come to fruition. Our number 1 seed since the first time since winning it all in 2005-2006 against the Edmonton Oilers in 7 games. And let me tell you something, that PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina might be the loudest in these Stanley Cup playoffs, and I'm not kidding. Maybe Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee will have something to say about it. But not from what I see. I was so excited to watch full capacity. And who would have thought a year later after the coronavirus, we would have seen fans in the stands with full capacity, which is completely mind-blowing. And the fact that Canada simply cannot get any sort of fans, well, I saw Montreal might be able to. If that series goes 6 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs, that is something remain to be seen. And we will see as the Stanley Cup playoffs march on. But for right now, in this Game 2 recap with Carolina, up 2-0 in the series. Smash Aho, 803 mark power play goal. Assisted by Andrei Svechnikov, Dougie Hamilton in the first period. Second period goals there were none. Third period goals. Empty net goal for Sebastian Aho for the Carolina Panthers at the 1907 mark. 53 seconds remaining regulation time. Assisted by Brett Pesce. Carolina Hurricanes tallied one more, but it was not an empty net goal. Warren Foegele with 28 seconds remaining in regulation time. It was assisted by Jesper Fast. And this Carolina Hurricanes team is simply impressive from all ends of the floor. Of the ice, excuse me. This Carolina Hurricanes team is one of the favorites to win it all. And they might be the team that knocks out the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm going to get to them in just a minute. UC Cyrus finished the game with 28 saves for the Nashville Predators. And Alex Nedeljkovic finished the game with 32 saves for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now I could get into my next segment here with the Game 2 NHL game recap with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. I should have known better when this series started that when they had Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman all healthy, that I was going to regret my pick of the Florida Panthers in 7, and we are seeing it right between our very eyes. This is probably one of my more dumbfounded picks in a very long time on this show that I've had. And I'm completely owning up to it because I'm not surprised that this is happening. First of all, the Tampa Bay Lightning are the defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. The Florida Panthers are very young and they're still learning. And I know people are going to want to give Joel Quenneville the coach of the year, but I guess they haven't adapted to the Stanley Cup playoffs yet, now have they? And as for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I know everyone wants to be critical and crucial of their managing the cap salary. And I understand why people are so upset. But Tampa Bay, you got to give them credit where credit's due. They did it perfectly. They figured out the loophole in the NHL rules, and Steven Stamkos, the RP of the Tampa Bay Lightning, is on his march for a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, just like the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2016 and 2017. The fact, also, that Tampa Bay just has it more than Florida doesn't surprise me. And now now the series shifts to Tampa Bay, Florida, and it's not going to get easier for the Florida Panthers. This might potentially be a sweep, and it honestly wouldn't surprise me one bit. Will the Florida Panthers roll over in Game 3 tonight? Stay tuned, because if Tampa Bay wins tonight, they're winning Game 4 and the series is over. And no, I'm not making a Charles Barkley guaranteed kind of prediction here. No, I'm not doing that. And I'm not doing one of my permanent Sharpie moves here either, because where we've seen that before, an absolute jinx on my part. But this series, if Tampa Bay wins Game 3, is as good to being finished. But if Florida wins tonight, that might get interesting for Game 4. I mentioned about Stamkos and Kucherov, and about my pick with the Florida Panthers 7 over Tampa Bay Lightning, and Tampa Bay leading the series 2-0. So in Game 2 with this 3-1 win, Steven Stamkos, 452 mark. Assisted by Alex Killorn and Anthony Cirelli. Tampa Bay Lightning, Andre Palat, 1457 mark. Assisted by Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. Second period goes Florida Panthers. Mason Marchment, 1421 mark. Assisted by Carter Verhaeghe and Alexander Barkov. Third period goes Tampa Bay, Yanni Gourde, 1835 mark. Empty net goal assisted by Andre Palat. Andrei Vasilevsky finished game with 32 saves for Tampa Bay Lightning. Chris Driedger finished game with 26 saves for the Florida Panthers. John Cooper has his group focus for Tampa Bay. And Joel Quenneville needs to have his group refocus for Florida before heading to Game 3 on Thursday night. So we'll see what happens in Game 3 on Thursday night. I'm looking forward to watching it. It starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on one of the NBC networks. Check your local listings, as they all say. So now let's get to last night. St. Louis Blues, Colorado Avalanche. Colorado won 6-3. Truth be told, Nathan MacKinnon does a lot of things with grace and class. He recorded a hat trick last night. And Nathan MacKinnon is one of the best players in the NHL for a reason. And all of a sudden, Nazem Kadri will be getting a hearing today on his hit for Justin Falk. And he's probably going to get suspended 5 or more games. But where was the suspense? Where was this when Tom Wilson almost ended Artemi Panarin's career? He could have also ended his life. He could have done that. But no, let's protect Tom Wilson. What was Nazem Kadri is also a repeat offender just like Tom Wilson. We're gonna continue to hammer Nazem Kadri. But let's keep our little precious little boy Tom Wilson into the picture here. Why, NHL player safety department? Why do we continue to do this? Why do we have precedented rules from one player to another? Which is absolutely, completely ridiculous. This they don't do with grace and class whatsoever. They absolutely do not do this at all with it because they are completely inconsistent with their stance. That's simply, honestly, truth be told. Okay, so Jonas Donskoi scored 2 goals last night. Nathan MacKinnon scored 1. And also Brandon Scott also scored for the Colorado Avalanche. And then for the St. Louis Blues, who did score for them? Sammy Blais, Mike Hoffman, and Braden Shen. So Shen scored a power play goal at the 10:07 mark in the third period. And Nathan MacKinnon scored at the 19:48 mark. And he did have scored with 12 seconds remaining regulation time. And Jordan Binnington continues to stay on his head, but Colorado's overpowering them. Binnington, 29 saves for St. Louis Blues. And Philip Grubauer finished the game with 32 saves for the Colorado Avalanche. So now, before I get into my next segment here, before I get into my NHL awards, use promo code 12Ounce Sports, all caps, deposit bonus up to $1,000 for my bookie. Get up to $1,000 bonus with your first deposit, mybookie.ag. Promo 12Ounce Sports, 12Ounce Sports. Quench your sports thirst. We're live on Glenn's Diamond Dynamic Sports Corner. Excuse me. Thank you, JB Beck, Cody Jensen, Lou Gamlin, Tyler Valdez, Michael Corvallis, and excuse me. So, for all the hard and professional work that everyone does on the show, that's like, excuse me, I usually never sneeze on this show, so I'm like, yeah, that's the first time for everything, I guess they all say. But more importantly, these shows are always fantastic. Give us a follow on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. And we now can get into our next segment here. Let me get into the NHL awards for the 2021 regular season. So with the NHL regular season officially behind us now, it is time for me to hand out my NHL awards for the 2021 regular season. The regular season went by in the blink of an eye. I couldn't believe how fast it went as well here. Without further ado, let's start handing out my awards for the 2021 regular season, which lasted 56 games. Silver Hart Trophy, Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers. And if it's anyone else but Connor McDavid, confiscate everyone's media credentials immediately. Ted Lindsay, Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers. He already won that. And Austin Matthews, Toronto Maple Leafs, won the Rocket Richard Trophy with 41 goals. Calder Trophy should be Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild. Vezina Trophy, Andrei Vasilevsky of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then Norris Trophy, I think, should be Adam Fox of the New York Rangers. Jack Adams Trophy, Mike Sullivan of the Pittsburgh Penguins. General Manager of the Year, Joe Sakic of the Colorado Avalanche. And Selke Trophy, Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins. So those are my NHL awards for the 2020-2021 season. So now, let me get into my NBA postseason preview. But before I do, let me just read this off to you again. Get up to $1,000 bonus with your first deposit. MyBookie.ag, promo 12Ounce Sports, 12Ounce Sports, quench your sports thirst. We are live on Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner and on the 170th show today. And this is 12Ounce Sports, quench your sports thirst. I hope you all are enjoying my wonderful show today. It's good to be back after not being on live air on Monday. And the Stanley Cup playoffs, ladies and gentlemen, is honestly, the most wonderful time, of the year in the National Hockey League. And for all the people that think the NBA playoffs is better than the NHL playoffs, don't know what they're talking about. But I am about to get into the NBA playoffs right now here on this 170th show here. Live on Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner on 12Ounce Sports, quench your sports thirst. So the NBA play-in tournament is still going on. So the San Antonio Spurs and the Charlotte Hornets are done for the year as the number 10 seed. The Golden State Warriors lost to Los Angeles Lakers. And the Golden State Warriors will be facing the Memphis Grizzlies for the number 18 on Friday night. And tonight, after the Boston Celtics defeated the Washington Wizards on Tuesday night, the Washington Wizards will face the Indiana Pacers for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. So now, the NBA play-in tournament's going on. The NBA regular season is behind us now. And the 72-game NBA regular season is behind us now, and we'll see what's going to happen during these unpredictable NBA playoffs. So without further ado, let me predict what's going to happen during these NBA playoffs. Let me start in the Eastern Conference with the number 8 seed Indiana Pacers versus Washington Wizards versus the number 1 seed, the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, so no matter if it is a combination of Domantas Sabonis / Malcolm Brogdon or versus Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook in the first round of the NBA playoffs for the Philadelphia 76ers, they should take care of them rather easily. Doc Rivers will have a game plan to frustrate either Indiana or Washington. Ben Simmons is the same old player, but Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and the defensive structure of the Philadelphia 76ers is honestly going to be just fine for them in the long run. But in all honesty, this should be a rather quick series, so I'm going to take the pick Philadelphia 76ers in 4. Number 5 seed Atlanta Hawks versus the number 4 seed, the New York Knicks. This is going to be a very interesting series. Atlanta and New York have not slipped the playoffs for a while. The good news is that one of these teams will be advancing to the second round of the NBA playoffs, and one of them will be bounced and heading home for the summer. The Hawks are a little bit deeper and better with Clint Capella, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Trae Young, and John Collins. The Knicks have Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, Alfred Payton, I know he stinks from the SGK, and RJ Barrett. Nate McMillan has struggled to get past the first round of the NBA playoffs with the Indiana Pacers, but it will be much different with the Atlanta Hawks, and he took over as head coach during the middle of the season. That's why Atlanta played so much better. Tom Thibodeau with the New York Knicks will be scratch and clawing their way, but their fans will finally be quiet and be put in their place on Twitter and other social media places once and for all. The pick, Atlanta Hawks in 6. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to commercial break. I'll be right back.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. So, let's now get into the next series. The number 7 seed Boston Celtics versus the number 2 seed, the Brooklyn Nets. So, Boston and New York teams don't like each other very much. The Boston Celtics are undermanned big time in this series, and the Brooklyn Nets are the overwhelming favorites in the NBA series. So I don't know if you saw what Boston Celtics head coach Brad Stevens has said time and time again. He thinks that the Nets are the overwhelming favorites as an NBA fan, and he doesn't think that his team has a puncher's chance to knock off the upset. And I know Kendrick Perkins of ESPN took total offense to it simply because the Boston Celtics, let me just go back on script here, So Jason Tatum is the only thing that Boston's got. Jaylen Brown is injured, and everyone else on the roster is inconsistent. The trio of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden is going to be a problem for Brooklyn. So my pick is the Brooklyn Nets in 4 over the Boston Celtics. So next up is the Miami Heat, number 6 seed, versus the number 3 seed, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think it's an extremely bad draw for the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Miami took down Milwaukee in the second round of the NBA playoffs last season in 5 games. The Heat pose a threat to the Bucks defensively because they do things extremely well on the defensive end of the floor. Miami has Jimmy Butler, Kendrick Nunn, and Bam Adebayo. Milwaukee has Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. So, we'll see how these matchups play out throughout this NBA series. But my pick, Miami Heat in 7 games. Okay, so the 8th seed in the West will either be the Memphis Grizzlies or the Golden State Warriors versus the number 1 seed, the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz, I think, are going to win the series. And here's something else. Donovan Mitchell should be back for Utah from his ankle injury. And as long as Donovan Mitchell is healthy enough, the Utah Jazz should be fine. The good news for the Utah Jazz is that they should not, if the Los Angeles Lakers were to make a deep playoff run, I don't know if they're going to, but if they were to make a deep playoff run, the Utah Jazz would not hit them till at least the conference finals. So Utah usually doesn't flame out early. But the thing is, the Jazz want to move past last year's 3-1 collapse in the bubble against the Denver Nuggets. Well, other players like Joe Ingles, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert, Jordan Clarkson, and Mike Conley also step up. The question is, will the Utah Jazz face a guy like Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, or will they be facing players like John Morant, Jonas Valanciunas, and Dillon Brooks? The Utah Jazz will win this series. If they play the Golden State Warriors, it will be in 6. If they play the Memphis Grizzlies, it's going to be in 5. So next up, number 5 seed Dallas Mavericks versus number 4 seed Los Angeles Clippers. This is the series I was waiting all day to tell my audience about it, what I think is going to happen. It is a rematch of last year's first round series where the Dallas Mavericks could have beaten the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Los Angeles Clippers lost in the second round. The Los Angeles Clippers are not going to be so as lucky this year. Number one, they do not play well when the game's on the line. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George always pull a disappearing act. Number two, now here's a key factor about the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic is one of the best players on the planet right now. Luka Doncic. No idea how the Dallas Mavericks were able to get the number 5 seed with this roster of Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jalen Brunson, and an injured Kristaps Porzingis, Elzar, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Dwight Powell. And they also have Josh Richardson. The Dallas Mavericks, I have a gut feeling, and I do not know why, that Luka Doncic is going to go off in this series and be a threat to post a triple-double every single game he plays. Luka Doncic is a complete man on a mission. I cannot tell you for the life of me why I think Luka Doncic is going to go off, but he absolutely is going to. And ladies and gentlemen, you can bet, I would bet my $100 tomorrow for Luka Doncic to go off in this series and carry the Dallas Mavericks in the second round. That is how confident I am in this man. I am completely confident in the words of Stephen A. Smith, his brother. I am so confident that Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks are going to win this series. Yet, better yet, in fact, this is the one pick I am the utterly and most confident in all the series. Yet, I know you got the weak Eastern Conferences. But in the Western Conference, this is the series I am most comfortable picking with. Because Luka Doncic, he's going to put his Superman cape on. He's going to carry the team on his back. And I simply cannot wait for it. And I just got a feeling he's going to tear it up in these NBA playoffs and carry the city of Dallas, Texas on his back. And as I mentioned about Luka Doncic, I have no idea how he was able to carry the Dallas Mavericks to a number 5 seed. In the NBA playoffs, the Los Angeles Clippers will have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but will they choke again? And I think Dallas' sidekick in this series will not be Kristaps Porzingis, but Tim Hardaway Jr., but will Rajon Rondo hold down the glue in the fourth for Los Angeles Clippers? And now, with the coaching match of Rick Carlisle for the Dallas Mavericks and Tyronn Lue for the Los Angeles Clippers. So the pick in this series, Dallas Mavericks and 6. Yes, absolutely, relatively, and I'm not doing that old guaranteed and Sharpie thing. No, but I'm so confident in Luka Doncic's ability to win this series for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not saying he's going to take them past the second round conference finals, even the NBA finals. But for this series alone, I am absolutely relatively confident, and it is so going to happen in this series. And if it doesn't happen, I will be utterly and shockingly disappointed. I mean, this is the one thing I am so confident about that I'm just uberly excited. Okay, now let me move on from this series. So, number 6 seed Portland Trail Blazers versus the number 3 seed Denver Nuggets. Now, I know Denver has had some issues in the past against Portland. But I think it's a little bit different this year. Portland statistically has a worse defense than the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA. And yeah, I just said that. The Portland Trail Blazers are worse defensively than the Brooklyn Nets are. And yeah, Portland has CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, and then Yusuf Nurkic and Norman Powell. But Denver has Fonzio Campazano, Nikola Jokic, the MVP, most likely. And I'll get to the NBA awards in just a couple of minutes on here. And also, they have PJ Dozier and Michael Porter Jr. So an interesting coaching matchup, Terry Stotts, versus Michael Malone. The Denver Nuggets, I think, are a little bit better than they were 2 years ago when they faced each other in the second round of the NBA playoffs in the semifinals, and Portland beat them in 7 games with that. And CJ McCollum just went off in Game 7, basically unconscious, and Damian Lillard was quite cold. But the thing that the Denver Nuggets may miss in this series, I don't think it might matter, is Jamal Murray. If they had Jamal Murray, they would have been my pick to win the Western Conference, with the way that I think the seedings are. And what's very interesting is that the top 4 seeds in this year's NBA playoffs have never won an NBA title. Maybe I'll get to that just a minute, and I'll also check off my playoff teams. So, who's my pick here? In this series, I am going to go with the Denver Nuggets in 6. Now let me get into number 7 seed Los Angeles Lakers versus number 2 seed Phoenix Suns. Yes, an exact 7-2 matchup, 2005-2006. Remember, Kobe B. Bryant, Tim Thomas, Kwame Brown, Lamar Odom, Boris Diaw, Steve Nash, Andrew Barbosa, and the list goes on and on. Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, Kurt Thomas. So then, remember Smush Parker and Sasha Vujacic. Man, oh man, I remember that series like when I was just a kid. Los Angeles Lakers had a 3-1 series lead, and they lost to the Phoenix Suns in 7 games. That was, who was that coaching for the Lakers? Phil Jackson, and then Mike D'Antoni was the coach for the Phoenix Suns. And it's completely different with Frank Vogel versus Monty Williams. So now you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Andre Drummond, Dennis Schroeder, and then you have guys like Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Chris Paul. Another potential MVP candidate. So this could be a very fun series. And the Phoenix Suns, this is the first time they're in the playoffs since the 2010, and that's when they went all the way to the Western Conference Finals. And that's when the Los Angeles Lakers went back-to-back. Here's the thing. Lakers, 2009, they won the championship in Orlando. And in 2010, they went back-to-back. 2020, they won the NBA championship in the Orlando Disney bubble. And in the year they went back-to-back, they faced the Phoenix Suns in the NBA playoffs. I'm not saying that doesn't mean anything. Did I really just throw my pencil out in the garbage? Can't believe I just let that happen. I'll be right back.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. You win.
Okay. Difficult.